Welcome back, everybody. I know it's been a little while, a couple weeks, I think, actually, since I posted a video. With everything that's going on, my life as well as everybody else's lives have kind of been turned upside down. So, first and foremost, just make sure that everybody is being safe. This is a very trying time that we are in, and making sure that this community, and every other community for that matter, stays healthy is number one. So, please make sure that you wash your hands on a regular basis and try to limit the contact that you have with other people. Practicing social distancing is very important right now, so that even though you may not have it, you may be a character for COVID or a carrier for COVID-19. So make sure that you're not passing that on to your friends, your family, and your loved ones there. That being said, please be safe, and let's jump into a deck that I've seen a little bit more. And I know that there's been some requests that maybe I play at an F&M for Paper Magic. I'm not sure if that's going to happen within the next week or two. But this is just a basic list that I found online. And I do really like it. I like this color combination a lot. Especially because it has green and blue in it. It has the added advantage of adding black as a third color. So Sultai. It's really good. It's a lot of versatility with the deck. Kind of as a, not really a ramp deck, kind of a ramp deck, not really a control deck, but kind of a control deck. So we'll jump right into what we've got here. First and foremost, for Thought Erasure. Thought Erasure being a card that has been a staple, I think, in any decks that played blue and black since it's been printed. Thoughtseize is very good. Thought Erasure is very good. Getting the ability to set up your next turn, or just ditching something that you don't want for the next turn is really, really good. 2 Tyrant Scorn. Right now, all around good removal. Destroy target creature with converted mana cost 3 or less, or return target creature to its owner's hand. So things to think about are the Temur Clover deck, which has become fairly prevalent now, one that I am playing. 3 drops, Bone Crusher Giant, sure you take 2, doesn't really matter. The Beast, Lovestruck Beast, is a 3-drop. The Innkeeper is a 1-drop. I think Hydra Crisis out of other decks is a 2-drop, even though it's X. Its CMC has only changed when it's on the stack. So it's a 2-drop in itself. Uro, Croxa. So there's a lot of things that Tyrant Scorn deals with just to get rid of it and destroy it. And then, of course, bouncing any other problematic creatures that it may potentially have, as well as your own with this deck. And that's something I'll get into a little bit later so that we can, when we get to that card. So Tyrant Scorn is pretty good removal for this deck. Next we have Gross Spyro, probably one of my favorite cards throughout Standard right now. Has been since it's been printed. Draw a card, put a land into play. A little bit of ramp, a little bit of card draw late game. If you draw it off the top, you don't know you're going to draw. It does just cantrip back into another card for you, so it replaces itself. Not too shabby. Hydra Crisis. There's 4 of this in the deck. Just the simple fact that you want to cast a big Crisis, reload your hand. If it wins the game, it wins the game. Like, it's there. It's not necessarily going to be your game winner because you're going to dump a lot into it. But it's going to refill your hand for you to be able to control the board and then be able to push the rest of it. And we'll get to some of the other stuff later that just helps you do that. Your real game winners here, as everybody knows, happens to probably be Nyssa. Card is just ridiculous. Next we have Uro. There's 3 Uro here. Uro being able to ramp you a little bit more, gain you a little bit of life, gives you the availability so you don't have anything that's any small creatures really to block early game. So against like the red deck, it's very hard to deal with. Uro gaining you 3 life for 3 mana and an extra card is pretty good. Once you start dumping stuff and you start killing things with, you have the Thought Erasers and Tyrant Scorns and Growth Spirals, Uro becomes really good because early on in the game, you can play the Uro, just wipe out your graveyard, and then start to continually gain 3 life every turn, refill your hand, and keep that flow of cards coming that you actually need. So next is, this has a single Atreus, and I'll just touch on these briefly. Single Atreus and a single Palooka. Atreus just giving you the little bit extra card selection. It also makes it very hard for your opponent to choose what's wrong and what's right. You often have a fistful of cards, and they don't know which piece you are looking for. So sometimes it's just, I need land. When they show you 2 cards that are relevant, you can take the bottom down card, because if it's a land, great. If it's not, you still get a card. So there's one thing to think about with that. I do like not running more than potentially 2 Atreus in the deck. It is legendary. It does filter through 3 cards. You do have potential to draw a lot with this deck. So that is problematic. But it is a 3-2 with Menace, so it is also a buddy that just attacks. Next you have Palooka, which, of course, another 4-drop. This thing can just get ridiculous. If you have a bunch of mana, you can start picking off creatures one by one. Bunch of cards in your graveyard, buy it back. It's a 12/12 instead of a 6/6 for some reason. Again, start picking everything off. It's just really good, and it's repeatable removal for a creature-based deck. Hence why there's only one. You don't need more than the one, I don't think, in here. It's not going to be great, or I should say it's not going to be amazing. It doesn't have trample, so having a 12/12 that gets blocked by a 1/1 and shrinks every turn really stinks. Next is 2 E2 Extinction. So this card replacing Vraska's Contempt in Standard, a little bit better on the mana base. Only 1 black, and then 3 generic for that as an instant, but exile target creature or planeswalker. And this is very relevant because it exiles gods. Now, it only exiles gods when they're turned on, but it exiles the gods. So it gives you a way to deal with both the gods and the planeswalkers that we have currently in Standard that seem to be overpowered. That we lost when Vraska's Contempt rotated. So next we have 2 Vraska Gogogari Queen. This is a card that I think is starting to uptick just a little bit. It's not amazing, but late in the game you do have the things that are, sack another permanent. If you do, gain life, draw a card. Being able to fill your hand back up. Again, this deck wants to draw cards and churn through his deck as fast as possible, getting to the pieces that you need to control the board and then win with just 1 or 2 turns. So you can also have removal with this to destroy target non-land permanent for mana cost 3 or less. And then the rarely used but always winning if does, you get an emblem whenever creature you control deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. Pretty bad. For your opponent, at least. Next is Tamia. Tamia is very good. Being able to buy back individual pieces that you would want to use over and over and over again. Things in the deck like Enter the God Eternals, Casualties of War, Massacre Girls, buying back Hydra Crisis to refill your hand, Thought Erasures when you need to make sure that the coast is clear. All of those things, as well as being able to pump cards into the graveyard to exile away, escape away an Uro, or escape away Palooka if need be, to be able to wipe the board and get things going again. It can be really good. I think Tamia's awesome, as well as having the upside to spells and abilities your opponents control can't cause you to discard cards or sacrifice permanents. So Kroxa is fairly relevant right now. You do take 3 if they hit a Kroxa, but you don't have to discard anything, so you can protect your hand if it's that one card that you need that you think is going to win you the game. And then things like Angrath's Rampage. Another card that's really good. I know they're both Rakdos, so they both fit into one style of deck, but they're just 2 examples of, being able, a passive for a Planeswalker being able to protect you against something else that's out there right now. Next is 2 Massacre Girl, and this is where I was going to say I was going to get back to the Tyrant score. And so Massacre Girl as a 4/4 with Menace is actually a pretty big clock, wiping the board. Now say that the only thing that they have is a 2/2, and you need to start the chain that way. It's a lot of mana. This deck can do it, though. Double black or quadruple black. Actually, it's quintuple black, right? Yeah, because it'll cost you 5. Can be a little rough. So there's not very many black sources that are all going to come down at the same time that you're not going to use for other colors as well. But if you Massacre Girl, Tyrant Scorn, return target creature to its owner's hand, and then Massacre Girl again. If you didn't get the board with the first one, you should be getting the board with the second one. Also, you can be able to say that you play Massacre Girl early. You don't have to do it the exact same turn. End of your turn, bounce the Tyrant Scorn, replay the Massacre Girl. You'd also give it Pseudo Vigilance if you had to and attack that turn, bounce it after it deals damage, and play it back out in the second main phase. Massacre Girl is very good at dealing with X1s. And then, of course, if there is an X1 on the battlefield, taking it up. Now, remember, you do have this thing in Hydra Crisis where you can make Hydra Crisis a 1-1 if you need to. That 1-1 will die to Massacre Girl and then start a chain up. Just start a ridiculous chain, usually, going up. So, Massacre Girls is interesting. I like it more sideboard than mainboard, but I also haven't played this deck too much, so it's very situational, I think. Against the control decks, you're putting one creature onto the battlefield, and that's probably not good. Like, they're going to turn on their removal, their 1-for-1 removal. Next, we have Nyssa, who shakes the world. Everybody knows what this card does. This card's ridiculous, so I'm not going to go over it, but it is interesting to note this deck in particular is only playing 3. I do think that you could potentially play 4, because Nyssa is a key component with racking up mana in this deck. So being able to generate just absurd amount of mana and being able to cast 2 or potentially 3 6-drop spells in one turn is absolutely amazing. But it's only able to be done with Nyssa in play. So very good. You need to protect that Nyssa if at all possible. And don't be afraid to let the Nyssa take a couple of hits as long as it's still on the board. Next is Enter the God Eternals. Enter the God Eternals is an interesting card. Dealing 4 damage, gaining 4 life, and milling yourself 4, right? And then making a 4/4. So 5 mana, you get a lot of text. It's really good for the simple fact that it also puts 4 cards into your graveyard. So you deal with 4 to their creature, you can gain 4 life, put 4 cards to be able to buy back your Uro, and then make a 4/4 to actually block. It is a sorcery, so it does kind of stink, so your opponent sees everything that's coming, but the card's there, and I think you see an uptick in this card as well. If the control style seems to be more of the way to go, or the mid-range style, I should say, excuse me. So next is 1 Liliana Dreadhorde General. Liliana is just good. Another source of card draw for you, making 2/2 zombies, and then of course making a horde that can also just win the game because people don't want to block. So that is another thing that can be done. And the probably one of the best cards in this deck, Casualties of War. Often, generally at minimum 2 for 1-ing your opponent, but often 3 or 4 for 1-ing your opponent is amazing. And Casualties of War with Tamia and being able to buy it back in this deck is just ridiculous. You do get the fact that you generate so much mana, and you probably listened to me just say, with Nyssa on the battlefield, you can cast 2 or 3 6-drops in the same turn. Casualties of War being the premium spell that you want to do that with. I've cast this thing so many times, and you get such a good feeling when you do it. I'm sure your opponent feels really bad because they're losing like 3 permanents to your one card out of hand, but hey, that's the name of the game. That's what happens. So then we get to some lands. We have a couple of islands, a swamp, 3 forests, play set of watery graves, overgrown tombs, and breeding pools, a play set of Temple of Malady, and then 2 Temple of Mystery, and then 4 Fable Passage. Just try to get yourself through your deck, thin it out a little bit, and get through those cards that you really want. This sideboard is it's kinds of 1s and 2s ofs, so a couple disfigures, couple Aether Gust, and Agonizing Remorse. And I'm not gonna go through each spell here, each card. You have an Elder Spell, 3 Mystical Dispute, 2 Lovestruck Beasts. Here's 2 more Enter the God Eternals, which I really do like. You then have one Casualties of War here, which I could see actually making a third one in the side, potentially just the fourth one, or a third one in the main, and potentially just a fourth one in the side. But the one card I wanted to touch on, I did really like, and Matt has talked a lot about this, and I really like it. I've liked it since it came out. It's Thought Distortion. 6 mana. The spell can't be countered. Target opponent reveals their hands. Exile all non-creature, non-land cards from that player's hand and graveyard. This card can be ridiculous. So non-creature, non-land. If you're playing against something like a Fire's deck that doesn't have, you're able to control the board, and you're able to hit this early enough or deal with some other things. You just get to exile their planeswalkers, and maybe their fires if you've got it out there. Control decks, they can't counter it. You have to wipe their entire hand, and often it is in a super control deck like blue-white. It's their entire hand, everything except the lands, because they're maybe playing 1 or 2 creatures in their deck. So Thought Distortion, I think, is in a really good spot right now. Not going to be much more than a 1 of, but it is there. So I do appreciate everybody for checking it out and sticking around here. Remember to be safe, and that's it. If you have any questions, please make sure to make a comment. We'll try to get those, and see if we can't help some things out. If you also want to see a different deck with the deck tech here, kind of run through some things, be more than happy to listen. So just go ahead and put a comment, and I'd appreciate it. Thanks for watching.